This is turn 58 of Degeneracy. So we have made a Lemur Acolyte or two Lemur Acolytes and a Grand Lemur. So that's just basically us spending our death gems on additional mage support. And Atlantis has absolutely spammed these Tupelacs at us. So we lost the Tungalik, which we stole. We lost one of the Shadow Tribunes. Our Prophet managed to kill just fine. We lost one of our Shamans. That's our Prophet again, and Prophet winning again. So, yeah, our Prophet seems to have no problem killing them. Unfortunately, though, he did manage to take out both two of our mages and one of our commanders, so that is actually something which basically cost us a bunch of units. So here, this is just Agartha attacking one of our provinces with a large stack of mages leading some crossbows. Here in Abyssia, this is Atlantis just once again taking control over the province. He's not actually storming it, he's just beating the province defense. Here underwater, our Lemur Acolyte-led raiding party runs into Agartha's Pretender again. And like last time, Agartha just still has his Pretender decked out as a super combatant, and these ghosts really aren't going to do anything to him. Even if he didn't have him set up for ghost killing in this way, this amount of province defense is already going to at least do something to our ghosts. Like we would be relying on Horde of Skeletons to do killing for us, and the Soulless, of course. But while the ghosts can stall them, they don't kill very quickly. The skeletons do much better, of course. Even with their worse combat stats, because they're underwater, their attack and defense are reduced. But when they do hit, they actually do manage to do damage. Okay, so the province defense managed to rout our ghosts, but not all of our skeletons. So if the Pretender hadn't been here, we would have at least managed to capture the province. However, he is going to have no trouble whatsoever killing the stuff that our mage actually animated. And eventually he kills the Sleepy Mage as well, so we lose the Lemur Acolyte, and most of our guys just retreated nowhere. Here in Ardun, we defeated an attacking force from Mictlan. This is just the AI Mictlan just sending the random chaff that it gathered, so our ghosts have no problem beating that. Here in Pescan, this is just some stuff that we had basically just left in the province, a blind fighter that we'd stolen and some ghosts that had retreated there. And then he has just a bunch of mages and blind fighters, so we don't really have anything there which can contest that many sacreds. Here in Onfalia, so this is actually Atlantis' army, and because he spammed those Tupelacs, we actually left a bunch of stuff behind, and this is all just unled, just like default stuff, so it's mingled with the province defense just in the center of the battlefield. As far as Atlantis' stuff goes, it looks like he's got a couple water bottles, or one water bottle. He actually has a bunch of supply items this time, and a gate cleaver, the idea being that he wants to get through that gate as quickly as possible. It also looks like he has at least one skull talisman, so that gives him one free skeleton at the start of the fight, and it also lets him animate skeletons for a lower fatigue cost. It's not that great on a D1 mage, because these guys can already animate regardless, so I'm not sure why he has that. These guys also appear to be just kind of blobbed together into a double line, and based on where he has this guy arranged, the Ice Elemental is stuck behind his crossbowmen, which don't actually have cold resistance. So with Witherbones and Dust to Dust, he manages to get rid of a bunch of our ghosts right away. Our crossbow fire incidentally actually freed this Ice Elemental, so it can slip through the gap right there. But we also, I believe, managed to kill one of his mages. And he had a little bit of friendly fire there. So we definitely lost that fight, of course, as can be expected from facing an actual army with mage support. But the stuff which we'd left behind, which I would actually attribute most of these losses just to the Tupalax, which killed the commander and thus prevented them from getting away. We did manage to kill some of these Tungaliks, so we actually killed 2 of his mages, basically just by incident. And that was basically just unscripted firing. So that's always fun. Here in Gertug, we just took a province from Mictlan and got a couple Solus from our Shade Beasts, reanimating them by killing things. Here in the Black Gorge, this is just a province being raided by some Snow Warriors, and this is actually really kind of like what I would say an Atlantis raiding party should look like, although to be honest I would actually lead them with the Tungalax since they have 40 leadership as well. But basically all he should need to take our provinces is just a couple of Snow or Ice Warriors. Then in the Silent Wetlands, we bounce off of a stack from Agartha. This is our mercenary group with the 30 longbows and just a bunch of our ghosts. But we're running into 5 mages and 40 of his sacreds. So it's definitely more than enough in order to hold off my guys. And he basically just sent them here as like an interception group. Thanks to his having cast Iron Skin on his mages, they're relatively resilient, so these guys are much less likely to die now to a stray arrow, even if they do get hit, just because while they don't have any natural armor or anything, they do now have 20 protection, which is a lot compared to even Longbow's piercing damage. So my ghosts are actually able to put in a little bit of work, at least when it comes to fighting the province defense, and my longbows are of course helping out as well. However, they don't kill very quickly, as we've seen countless times before, so the high defense or high protection blind fighters, with their reinvigoration helping them avoid falling asleep too quickly, even with their 11 encumbrance, they should be able to hold off these ghosts for as long as they need to until they all get dusted. Normally these sorts of attrition fights go in Lemuria's favor, especially since my guys have no encumbrance whatsoever, and we even have a couple of fear auras to reduce these guys' morale by a bit. Unfortunately, we're fighting against a large number of mages, or at least a handful of mages, and we have no mage support on our side at all. So with no rigor mortis or anything similar to help make his guys go to sleep faster, as well as to keep his mages down, he's able to replenish his front line with these additional skeletons and Solus, and then they can creep around the side of my guys, thus enveloping them and helping make sure that the ghosts can die much more quickly. And eventually, after the squads have taken sufficient damage, they rout. The rest of those guys, they were just mercenaries, so once they're routing, they're gone. So we killed only 3 of the blind fighters, and we killed 7 of the turtle warriors. We killed, of course, much more in province defense, but that, of course, is going to be replenished. So yeah, definitely a defeat there, and mostly just on account of it being mages against no mages. Here in Mictlan, we just take over the province. We lose one of these ghosts, which is always sad because they're such incredible units. But Mictlan is now under siege once again, so we can get some income from them for a little while until Marignon is able to take over the siege once again. Here in Genam, we also bounce off of this province. This one does not have much mate support on his side, but it does still have a huge number of these blind fighters, and as we saw, they're very resilient. So they're most likely able to just hold these guys off long enough until they are able to succeed in a morale check against them. While these guys do have pretty decent undead leadership, so they can drag a bunch of ghosts around, their base leadership isn't that great, which means that they don't apply a morale bonus. So these guys all have a slight morale penalty, which means that it's a little bit more likely that they'll fail their check once enough of them get killed. Here in Pena, we also bounce off of this province, and this one is just due to mages. 8 reanimators is way too many to fight with only 30 of our ghosts. We lose a couple of guys who retreat into enemy territory, so that always sucks. And we get one of our scouts attacked by an ice elemental from Atlantis' Vengeful Water. Then as far as events go, we get some famine, don't really care. Get some earth gems, that's nice. And let's see, we get a little bit of gold and a stinger, which isn't a super useful item. So let's see how things are going. So we still have Mictlan under siege, but like I mentioned, we're just going to be passing this one over to Marignon regardless. So I'm going to be moving these guys away. I'm just leaving a single shadow soldier behind, basically just to keep the fort besieged, so that Mictlan can't produce anything from there. And that also means that we'll still get the income until that siege is broken. Then we're going to be gathering our guys onto this throne, just so that we can be prepared to eventually storm it, and to help storm it more quickly. This guy's bringing a bunch of gems, so that we can have these guys communing up and cast some excellent magic. Mictlan or Marignon agreed to give this one to us as part of the borders that we agreed on, so we're going to go ahead and grab that. Hopefully he moves those fiends away, but even if he doesn't, this Grand Lemur and his army of ghosts should be able to handle just a handful of them, especially since if he can't move them away, that most likely means he doesn't have demon leadership, which means that the demons should rout instantly regardless. We're basically just moving stuff around over here. We summoned this Eater of the Dead, which is going to basically grow in size until we lose control over it. This one's pretty awesome because it's a size 6 trampler that swallows on trample, which basically means it just instantly kills whatever it stomps on. So this is really great against things like skeletons. It basically requires things like size 6 elementals in order to hold it up, or a size 6 super combatant, or something else which can basically just insta-kill it very quickly. I'm going to be having these guys move patrol over here, and one guy move patrol over here. That's basically just to make sure that if Agartha does attack one of these two provinces, that we can hit him with some Winds of Death or Wailing Winds. Then we're going to be attacking, we're basically just going to be raiding. So all of these things are just like expendable raiding parties. This one here, I actually messed up. I should not have had him retreat. I should have just had him like stay behind the troops so that if the 13 guys can win, then, you know, they can win instead of automatically guaranteeing a loss. But this one I just want to see what he's patrolling with. Even when I don't expect to win, there's no reason to bring this many guys if I was just bringing them as Evo bait. And if I do want to have a chance to hold it, obviously I can't have my only commander retreat. These here are just actual raiding parties, which might not win, but do have a chance to at least. This one over here, because it's using an immortal guy, and I have Dominion in that province, means that I basically, if I lose that commander, then he just respawns, and if not, his apostasy spam can potentially help turn a fight just by getting a bunch of those blind fighters. Here we're still just sieging this thing, so these guys are all split between the guys which are leading the ghosts, because you need to have them set to siege in order to actually deal damage to the castle walls, and ones which are calling additional reinforcements, so shadows and spirits and so on, which will help break down the walls a little bit faster. We're going to be consolidating our army up into here. The reason for that is that we basically don't want to try holding this one over here without having additional reinforcements, and reinforcements can't make it to this province in time. So we're going to be gathering everyone over here. Because these guys I don't think can reach in time. Oh, they could. Yeah, I could have actually brought over additional mages. I think I just brought over like 1 or 2, basically just to make sure that I have additional lizard shamans which are capable of casting mass protection if he runs in over here. Because we've seen his script and he's not using his Forgiving Fathers in this army, mass protection is going to be incredibly useful, just for increasing the protection of my ghosts from 0 to 10. And then everything else is just raiding. We can expect to lose this province over here, and I'm not going to try defending that from the Snow Warriors. And then our Revenant is going to try to hit this province, which has a bunch of blind fighters underwater. It's not a place we always expect to find blind fighters, but they are definitely still tanky. And then we hope to be able to take this throne shortly, just because with our large number of ghosts and AI Micklins having very little stuff left, we should be able to breach that relatively quickly. And that's the turn. This is turn 59 of Degeneracy. So Olm is sending us lifelong protection, which is great. We can definitely use those imps in fights. Here we've got a Tupilak assassinated one of our Lemur Acolytes, and it actually managed to kill him, which is not a given. This Lemur Acolyte, on the other hand, managed to tame the Tupilak, and again, it's a little sad that we don't get to keep it. We revived another Acolyte, so that replaces the one which we just lost, and we don't find anything with our Arcane Probing. Here in Dural Woods, Atlantis is sending a werewolf and a bunch of wolves. So this is the spell Call of the Wild. It's a nature remote attack spell. Given that this isn't a spell that Atlantis can cast easily with its national mages, I suspect that he actually has the Soulstone of Wolves, which is an artifact which lets you cast it for free every turn. So we'll probably just be seeing one of these every turn, and we can just be thankful that Lemuria's province defense is usually good enough to beat a bunch of wolves. Then we've got our raiding. So in Fast Tier, we did manage to raid this one from Agartha. This is just one of the two provinces on our border in that area to the south where we're attacking from former Joman territory. Here in Land's End, we do manage to take this off of Marignan. This is the one which he had been essentially ceding to me, though, so no surprises there. Here in Gol Riep, we lose this one, of course, to Atlantis' full army, and this is the province which we were just not retreating out of, but moving out of in order to consolidate our armies next door. Here in Ablach, this was the one of the two that we were scouting, one of Agartha's forts, but this one has only province defense, so if we had actually brought a bunch of ghosts as a advanced scouting party, we could have potentially taken this one. This is the one where our this is that underwater province which we knew that we wouldn't be able to hold on to because we could just kind of see the Snow Warriors neighboring it, and we didn't move in anything to protect it, so of course we lost. Here in Momef, this is the one where a guy was retreating, where we knew that we couldn't take it because we had set him to retreat, but this one actually was also protected. 7-2 Markle seems like kind of extreme overkill, as does having this many Fall Bears. But either way, it would not have won, so we just lost 13 ghosts, so that's fine. In the Sodden Merc, this is just that swamp being raided by some Ice Warriors, so it's fine. Louvi we already saw. Berman Heights, we managed to capture this one, so that's nice, and our Shade Beasts even brought us some additional reinforcements. In Genom, we bounce off of those blind fighters underwater. So underwater, these blind fighters have really bad stats. Well, I guess it's not that bad, actually. Base attack 13 means it goes down to only 11, even with the penalty, and their shield parry is high enough that they can still block with 13. So that's not so bad. Their encumbrance isn't that great, and these guys have a penalty to their attack roll as well, because it's a partially slashing sword, but it's not all that bad. So this province defense, the province defense just isn't that threatening, of course, but it can definitely still hold up my guys, cause some attrition, while these blind fighters move forward. So it does, it definitely does take a while for our ghosts to kill things, but these guys are killing our ghosts even more slowly, so if it was fighting only province defense, they would have won. However, now they have to fight the blind fighters, which have much more protection. So it is a slow fight, since ethereal against very high protection means that these guys are just kind of hitting each other with wet noodles for a bit. But eventually hits our landing, and our ghosts can't hold up against stuff that they can't kill. So that is basically that. We do manage to cause a couple losses to those blind fighters. So we killed 2 of them at least. I thought we killed more in the battle replay, but that's fine. A burden of time. Old age is plaguing our troops, so a couple of our guys are old, but I'm sure that it's worse for everywhere else in the world. And of course our burden of time is still reducing global income, which also helps us a bit. We get some extra astral pearls, which are great. Always love those. We get a longbow of accuracy, which can also be nice. So we can put that on one of our guys. Demon worship, okay. And we get some gold and a Just Man's Cross, which is kind of ironic, but again, it's a ranged weapon, so potentially useful. Looks like someone put a Bane Venom charm in Joman, probably Atlantis. That doesn't hurt us so much. We, of course, would prefer not having the income there reduced, but our ghosts, of course, are not going to suffer from any diseases. And we have 2 forts to breach now, so let's go ahead and look at what we've got here. So we managed to hire these mercenaries, so we can bring them along too. And this guy can cast the incredibly valuable anti-magic and mass protection for us. Because my guys are ethereal, they can cruise right through the walls. We've got these guys set fairly far forward, set to fire, the idea being that they should potentially be within range to actually hit something with their composite bows, so they can just kind of shoot over the walls. And then we're doing a little bit of evocation from our guys. Well, actually a fair amount of evocation. Mostly nether darts. That's very effective with an S1 caster, and 25 range is still decent. So from here they should be able to hit roughly into the midfield of the enemy army. And then we're just going to rely on the fact that most of our army is ethereal to have them just not get bottlenecked in the center choke point of the fort, namely that gate thing there. And then we should be able to kill whatever the AI has left inside. Then just in case this storm does fail, we've also got 1 shadow soldier sitting outside. This basically means that if our army does lose and everyone retreats, that we still have that the fort remains besieged. Then over here in Gerthug, we're going to be storming here as well. We have our little mini communion set up with just 4 slaves and 2 masters. One of the masters is going to do Power of the Spheres to basically make the slaves 1 level higher than the masters, so their fatigue costs are all halved, and then personal regeneration in order to make sure that they can basically just remain, so they can continue regenerating from any extra damage that they take from the fatigue. And then after mass protection and personal regeneration, they're both just going to be spamming Storms of Thorns, which is just your general useful nature evocation spell. My priests, I could have had these guys scripted to cast specifically Unholy Power or Unholy Protection, but it doesn't really make a huge difference. And yeah, we've got all of our ghosts set to fire, so they can just chuck their javelins, or unscripted, they'll wind up doing pretty much the same thing. And then, of course, we're going to be casting Darkness here as well, which is going to reduce the stats of any non-demons that Mictlan has inside of the fort. Mictlan shouldn't have any undead, and they shouldn't have very many demons either. We're going to continue poking these guys with raiding parties. This guy is just set to cast Wind of Death, so if there's no province defense, like we saw last time, then his skeleton spam can potentially capture it, or at least besiege it, rather. And then here, if they are patrolling, then Wind of Death has a chance to decay some of those guys. We can see that they've got a 2 Moracle in here, so we're not going to try charging into it, even though there was definitely a chance that if we did try charging into it, that Apostasy could do the trick. Instead, we're going to consolidate our guys in here. The reason for that is that this is in our dominion, so if this guy does die, then then he'll actually just come back. This guy is going to be casting Rain of Stones. So if I had thought about it, I might have had him cast Iron Skin or something first, but he has at least this armor, which he came with, to help him survive a little bit better. And then because all of my stuff is ethereal, it should be relatively resilient to Rain of Stones, whereas if he attacks in with any human mages, those guys can get rocks dropping on them. On the other hand, if he has his guys casting Iron Skin turn 1, then they'll probably survive the Rain of Stones casting, so it's not actually necessarily going to be all that valuable, but it can potentially do something. And then these guys are going to continue raiding by just going south into here. We are going to move back a step, just because we don't know what all is in this province here yet. So it might be a ton of mages casting some nasty spells. So we're going to wait until we can see what all is in here. And then in the meantime, we're going to be bringing in extra mages, including this Lore Master, although really he's just getting out of here, and he's just set to retreat. And he can do some site searching. And what we'll actually have, which is useful, is just a bunch of these shamans, which I actually didn't script yet. So that was a mistake. Even though I don't actually expect any fight to be in here, you pretty much always want to keep your guys scripted by default. But I'll have all the mages together so I can potentially, after I see what's in here, send them back forward and then chase after Atlantis' army and take the fight in here. And then we're sending out more of these ghosts because we've got a bunch built up over into here. So we'll have some additional raiding parties which can potentially attack some of these provinces. And we're still just holding this down. The AI Micklin didn't try to break siege, but Marignon should be taking over from that single Shadow Soldier momentarily. And that's the turn.